North Korea. An image came to mind when I said those two words. Maybe it was images of the missile launch test that we see on the news, or maybe you recently watched Squid Game and thought of the character Kang Se-pyok, who is a North Korean defector. Regardless of what you thought, North Korea is in a humanitarian crisis. Every day, the citizens of North Korea experience risks unimaginable to Westerners due to their communist leadership and the oppressive government there. Today, I'm going to explain to you 3 of the risks faced by North Koreans in hopes of you gaining awareness that the risks that they face are more than just missiles and that they are the ones most at risk by oppression and by punishment from their leadership. The 3 risks that I will discuss are as follows: food insecurity and hunger, punishment for importing and consuming outside media, specifically that of South Korea, and third, punishment for trying to leave or defect from North Korea. My first point, as I said, is food insecurity and hunger. Hunger has been a major issue in North Korea for decades, and that's no secret. But it's still an issue today because of the way the regime seeks to control food distribution and production. Because of this, it is thought that around 10 million of the 25 million citizens in North Korea are food insecure. Additionally, the Global Hunger Index states on their website that North Korea is at a serious level of hunger and food insecurity, just 2 levels away from their most severe ranking of food insecurity. This happens for multiple reasons, but different sources have identified some key points, which are, for one, the LA Times states that lack of distribution or distribution issues act as one of the major reasons why hunger is so prevalent in North Korea. Farmers take only 30% of what they make or what they produce from their crops. The other 70% goes back to the regime. And also, as the RFA states, the North Korean government has not invested in modern farming equipment, which would make it easier for the country to produce more food better and faster. So hunger is obviously a big major issue in North Korea, which probably doesn't come as a huge surprise. But you're probably wondering, what is something that's a little bit more unique to North Korea? Like, what's something that other countries don't have? And that brings me to my second point, which is the fact that it is a crime to interact with media, culture, etc., that is from outside of North Korea. If it doesn't glorify the regime, more than likely it's illegal, and more than likely you could land in jail or die from simply choosing to import it, interact with it, sell it, you name it. So Kim Jong-un did not like the fact that North Koreans were continually attempting to figure out what the outside world was like via the media, specifically that of South Korea, because they could understand the language from there, and it's their southernmost neighbor. Everybody really wanted to know about what was happening outside. So Kim Jong-un decided he was going to enact the anti-reactionary thought law, which would prevent influence from outside media and culture by making it punishable by imprisonment or even death. An example is seen on the Daily North Korean website, which tells the story of a man from the Gangwon province who was executed by firing squad in front of a crowd of 500 people because he was selling South Korean dramas on USB flash drives. This shows just how extremely serious it is to simply agree or show interest in things outside of the North Korean regime. And at this point, you're probably thinking, well, why don't they just try to leave? And if I had not done my research, I would wonder the same thing. But it's actually another point of risk if you do try to leave. So that brings me to my third and final point: the punishment for defecting North Korea. Defecting is another word for leaving, and the country of North Korea has closed borders, which means that getting in is extremely difficult, but getting out can be deadly. If you try to defect from North Korea, researcher Jin Kang-woong, who wrote the piece Human Rights and Refugee Status of the North Korean Diaspora, states that defecting is punishable by no less than 7 years in a reform institution, which is basically a fancy word for a prison camp where you will more than likely die, or by direct death by execution in cases of grave concern as deemed by the North Korean government. This is definitely shocking, and you probably expected at this point that if you tried to leave that you would die. But even if they do get out, and they attempt to go to China, which is the easiest place to get out of North Korea from, they still risk death or imprisonment because China will send them back, because China is politically aligned with North Korea. They will send them back to North Korea in hopes of maintaining good feelings between the two countries. And there they will more than likely be imprisoned or die from committing this crime. So now that I've explained some of the hardships and risks that North Korean citizens face, I hope that you're more aware that the risk that we face from the missile launches is much more distant than the immediate risk that they face just for existing, trying to live, trying to attain some sense of self in a country that says they belong to the regime. Oppressed daily for simply choosing to think against their leaders or trying to have a better life, the threats and risks of North Koreans are truly more than just missiles. Thank you.